Welcome to the Startup Espresso. I'm Hall T. Martin, the host of the show, where we talk about raising funding for your startup and the time it takes to have an espresso. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, this is Hall T. Martin with the Startup Espresso, your daily shot of how to raise funding for your startup and how to invest in the time it takes to have an espresso. Today, we'll talk about how to value your startup. Since startups don't have significant revenue, then how do you value your startup when fundraising? Well, traditional tools such as discounted cash flow, book value, and other standard accounting techniques don't work for early-stage companies. For startup valuations, we use the rule of 4. For each value you have built into the business for revenue, team, product, and intellectual property, give your startup $1 million in valuation. So, for revenue, if you have 5 enterprise customers with contracts signed, then give your startup valuation $1 million. If you have something less than that, then reduce the valuation. Say you have only one customer who is paying, then give your startup $200K in valuation instead. If you have no revenue, then give your startup 0 valuation. If you have the team in place and working well, then give your startup $1 million in valuation. If you only have 2 in place, then give your startup, say, $500K. If you have the product up and running and ready to ship to the customer, then give your startup $1 million in valuation. If you have it in beta version, then give it, say, $400K. If you have the patents filed and awarded, then give your startup $1 million. If instead you have a handful of provisional patents filed, then give your startup, say, $200K. You then add up each of the 4 components, and that gives you your startup valuation. In this example, the valuation would be $1.3 million. In the end, startup valuation is not a formula, but rather a negotiation. No matter what valuation you put forth, the investor will challenge it. By using the rule of 4, you can articulate the values in your business, which will be much more compelling than the usual response of, well, I just think it's worth that. Thank you for joining us for the Startup Espresso, where we help startups and investors connect for funding. Let's go start up something today. Hall T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.